So I want to step back and do a 10,000-foot view of the last 8 years of J.B. Pritzker. Will be his 8th budget, and spending in his introduced was up $16 billion, which is 40%. And I would quickly point out that I don't know a single person in my district that's had a 40% pay increase in 8 years. In fact, if you want to go back and look at some actual numbers, through 25, take-home pay is at 6.2% in Illinois, which is well behind the national average of 13.6%. Even the national average is nowhere near a 40% increase in spending of state government under his leadership. What do the people of Illinois get for that? Well, they got $1,700 more per family in taxes. They've got some of the highest property taxes in the entire country. Our unemployment rate is if you can actually believe this, we have the highest unemployment rate in the Midwest, but it's the 4th highest in the country. So for $1,600 in taxes against the national average, $1,700 more in taxes against the national average, our Illinois citizens are stuck with the 4th highest unemployment rate in the country. Some of the highest property taxes in the country. What are they getting for their $16 billion in 8 years of J.B. Pritzker? By the way, just to compare, Indiana has 38% more jobs available to it in the same time frame than we do. Missouri, 36% more jobs. Oh, but wait. When the governor's introduced, he cut the property tax relief fund, and we still have some of the highest property tax in the country. Let's talk about schools in this state. We're paying $1,700 more per family than the national average. You think we ought to get education right? In fact, Leader Rezin, we're here, we voted for the landmark school funding reform years ago at this point to bring more more state dollars back home to help lower the burden on property taxes. But under J.B. Pritzker, it's been a shell game. In fact, in his introduced budget, transportation funding is down to only 66% of what it costs to roll a school bus every day. When he took over, it's 84%. 66% is a D grade. Special ed transportation down to 65%, another D grade. By the way, when you talk to the schools back home, rather than starting to right the ship under the state aid formula changes that we made in the landmark school funding reform, because of all these shifts, and when they say prorations, just think cuts, because that's really what it is. Those prorations have now created winners and losers in the school code. Because for a downstate school, for example, transportation funding cuts by Governor Pritzker, going from 84% to 66% in his time in office, have far exceeded what is actually coming in under that new EBF formula that was voted on at the end of Governor Rauner. Growth, 6.5% in Illinois. One might say, wow, not bad. National average is 15.1%. Healthy states don't need new taxes. Why? Because they're growing. Healthy states aren't punishing their citizens with this tax burden, which is directly correlating into the overall economy. And by the way, talking about punish your citizens, he's raised your power bills twice as well. And now, as I alluded to earlier, the ComEd territory, Chicagoland, will have the highest rates on record, up a third, more than a third, since he became governor. And our downstate folks will have the second highest rates, second only to last year under Governor Pritzker, which have tripled under his so-called leadership. More on energy, I'm going to introduce Senator Rezin.
Thank you, Leader Rose. I'm Senate Republican Deputy Leader Sue Rezin. I represent the 38th District. And as we stand here today, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Illinois families are being asked to pay more while getting less in return. Over the last several years, state spending has increased 40%. Yet Illinois still has the highest property taxes in America, the worst unemployment rate in the Midwest, an economy growing at roughly half the pace, as Leader Rose pointed out, than the rest of the country. Yet Illinois still, families are doing everything that they can to make ends meet. They're paying more for groceries, for housing, for insurance, childcare, and utilities. At a time when Illinoisans are tightening their belts and making difficult financial decisions, state government should be doing the same. Instead, we continue to see a pattern of more spending, more taxes, and more government. As someone who has spent years working on energy policy, I'm especially concerned about the continued rise in energy costs. Illinois families should not have to choose between paying their electric bill and paying for necessities. Reliable, affordable energy should be a priority. Yet too many of the policies coming out of Springfield are making life more expensive for working families and seniors on fixed incomes. We literally just voted on a so-called energy trailer that does nothing, and I mean nothing, to address these concerns. And now we're hearing discussions that rather than providing relief at the pump, the Illinois Democrats may do the opposite. Illinois is already one of the few states that applies a sales tax to gasoline. While Illinoisans plead for relief, Democrats are reportedly seeking to take the unexpected revenue generated by sales taxes on gas prices and redirect it for special interests. Not give it back to the citizens, but redirect it in the budget. When prices go up, families pay more. When families pay more, the state collects more. And instead of giving people relief, Springfield looks for another way to spend money. The answer to every budget challenge cannot be another tax, another fee, another fund sweep, or another way to take more money out of taxpayers' pockets. At the end of the day, the question is simple. After nearly 40% growth in state spending, are Illinois families better off? And the answer is no. Next, I'd like to introduce Senator Seth Lewis.
Thank you, Leader. Appreciate being here. I get State Senator Seth Lewis representing DuPage County as well as Collar Cook, and I have the pleasure of wearing two hats in this discussion. One, honored to be a lead budgeteer, but two, more importantly, to a subject that's near and dear back home, what's going to go on with the Bears. And that's what I'd like to talk about today, because we're down to our final hours of this legislative session, and while the budget is beginning to take center stage, the Bears are important. And we all know a few weeks ago the House passed a bill. It was labeled the Mega Projects Bill, but it was mainly to get the Bears conversation going. And we knew it needed work. Governor said it needed work. Chicago Bears said it needed work. Senate caucus on both sides said it needed work, because one of the biggest issues that we identified as Senate Republicans is that there was no protection for current homeowners or those who pay property taxes to be negatively impacted by a Bears bill. And that's very important. We cannot have economic development that negatively impacts and causes property taxes to go up for current property tax payers or homeowners. That's a big issue. So we've been working on that. But we all know the Chicago Bears are woven into the fabric of Illinois, so they're important. Generations of families have grown up with these franchises. Go to mom and dad's house, watch the Bears, mom cooks dinner. We all have done it, we all have loved it. And though we want our team to stay in Illinois, this is more about football. This is about making sure that we have a good deal that is good for all Illinois residents. And this has to be an economic growth and long-term investment. But it does not mean we get to write a blank check. The state of Illinois cannot write a blank check to the Bears just to keep them. We need to have economic growth. We need to have guidelines. We need to have something that incentivizes all of us here and that to create value. One of the biggest things, though, that I see related to the Bears is that the governor has been absent on this issue. When the governor wants to get involved, things happen. We're now down to our final hours. Where is he? Hopefully he gets involved, because when he does, I think we'll see a product related to the Bears that we might be able to get over the goal line. That's my goal. But the next 24 hours, we'll see what happens. We not only have an opportunity to keep the Bears in Illinois, but to make the necessary changes to regulations, business environment, and make Illinois more attractive to companies. That is something as Republicans we're looking for. And we have done it before. We can solve our major policy challenges by putting our differences aside and working together in a bipartisan manner to do what is best for the state and for the residents of Illinois. The Bears are an integral part of the state's identity, and keeping them in Illinois means preserving tradition and a source of pride that connects generations of fans. And I'm fighting for the Bears. I'm fighting for every business that we want to keep in Illinois. And as a budgeteer and a Bears negotiator, I think we can do both in the next 24 hours. Thank you. Leader Curran?
Thank you, Senator Lewis. So we're here waiting for the budget and tax increases and fees that we know increases that are inevitably coming. And we wanted, as Senator Rose had said, under Governor Pritzker, it has increased 40% in 8 years. And this is well beyond household incomes increasing at that same time. It just took this administration 8 years to nearly double the budget. A spending spree like this needs to be put in check. Illinois needs systemic changes if we are going to attract greater economic investment in this state. Because at this rate, we're not going to have anyone left to tax. Instead of looking to maximize federal investment in Illinois, as red and blue states around the country have been doing, this administration continues to refuse to work with the federal administration, refuses to engage. Rather than opt into the free federal tax credit program that blue state governors from around the country, New York, Colorado, have all signaled they're going to opt in to because it's going to bring dollars home to their states for education, Governor Pritzker has stayed eerily silent on what he plans to do for Illinois. Instead of opening the lines of communication to seek further investment in Illinois, ensure monies are flowing into our state, this administration has publicly said that they refuse to even communicate with the president's administration. Instead of passing on the federal tax breaks that businesses and taxpayers in every other state are going to get the benefit of, Democrats and the governor in Illinois seek to decouple us from those federal tax breaks, further punishing our businesses and our taxpayers here in Illinois. These are serious revenue issues that are being discussed and unfortunately are breaking against Illinois taxpayers and businesses. Every single neighboring state is outpacing us in economic growth and employment numbers. The spending is growing, the taxes are growing, the economy in Illinois is not keeping pace. Illinois continues to have the highest unemployment rate in the Midwest, as you heard from Senator Rose. And our economic growth, our GDP growth lags every Midwestern state. We're bottom 5 in the country on economic growth under Governor Pritzker, and we're bottom 5 in the country on jobs, unemployment. Indiana is well outpacing us. Missouri's well outpacing us. Even Wisconsin, with more modest growth, is still outpacing us. Illinois lost another 1,700 jobs in 2025. We're just one of 16 states to lose net jobs in 2025. On average, as we talked about, Illinoisans pay $1,700 more in taxes, in state and local taxes than the national average. Since taking office, Governor Pritzker has increased taxes and fees more than 40 times in 8 years. And hold on, because more is on the way this year. Taxes are growing, taxpayers aren't. This tax and spend strategy is not working. This needs to be reined in. The people of the state deserve a government looking out for them and their families. This state needs more jobs and more opportunity. To do that, we have to attract economic investment in this state. We have to attract job creators that are going to invest in the greatest workforce in the world, the Illinois worker. We want them here investing in our workers. We have the workforce to match their investment. Government needs to get out of the way. Governor Pritzker needs to get out of the way. And let's grow the Illinois economy. With that, we're going to open this up for questions.
You know, if someone comes up to you, your next door neighbor, friend at church, corner tap, whatever, is, I've been listening to you guys, you're right, Illinois flat out sucks. I think I'm gonna move to Indiana or Missouri. In fact, I'm gonna get a U-Haul right now. What do you tell them?
Well, they're not listening to me if that's their takeaway. Illinois is the best state in the country. We have the best workforce. We are centrally located in the middle of this country. Strategically, from a transportation hub, we move more freight through the state of Illinois than anywhere else. We have a highly educated workforce. We have a world-class hospital system, great health care here. We used to be a leader in affordable, reliable energy until, as Deputy Leader Rezin pointed out, under this governor, we have taken several significant steps backwards. So Illinois is the best state in this country. We are not maximizing our advantages. And let's talk about clean, reliable drinking water. Like, so Illinois, we're going to take off. It's just policies put in place, especially, I mean, before this governor was here, but it has been accelerated under this governor, that we've got to reverse. We got to attract more economic investment, but there's no other place I would rather be, Dave. So I would say Illinois is a fantastic place to live, but we need to get out. Government needs to get out of the way.
But the 40% spending and the high unemployment.
That's the problem.
And education, not making up. I guess I should be addressing my question to Leader Rose, because I'm from Illinois. I got pretty down on myself after listening to that.
I think the leader covered it.
All right.
Leader, you or Senator Lewis mentioned obviously the need to protect property taxpayers and mega projects legislation. But as these conversations are happening, has your caucus relayed illicit demands in exchange for votes on a mega projects bill?
I think the conversations have not been happening because the governor has not leaned into this, as Senator Lewis. He's been largely absent from the conversation since the mega projects bill passed the House. We have relayed our what on property tax protections, what needs to be in the bill to fix that, because we should not, in order to boost economic investment in the state and keeping our proud NFL franchise, we can't punish property taxpayers in the area, and so we have absolutely communicated that, and we're going to see what comes forward.
So to clarify, you have not heard from Senator Cunningham on the Bears?
I have. No, Senator Cunningham and I talk all the time, but on this, so no. Senator is working diligently on this. What is absent, and this has been pointed out, is normally in these instances you have a governor leading on these types of projects, and that's been absent.
Are you willing to support whatever Bears plan gets released?
No, we're not willing to support whatever. This is the right plan. This has to be good for Illinoisans. This has to be good for Illinois taxpayers. But we are ready to support a good, sound plan that protects property taxpayers, is good for Illinoisans, and is going to grow the Illinois economy.
K-12 education, Medicaid, pension obligations. How much of the 40% spending increase came from those three things? And of those three, which do you think we ought to cut back?
I'm gonna turn it over to our lead budgeteer here.
But there's no doubt that pension obligations are up. The fact of the matter is, as you know, the reform from 10 years ago now at this point is going to hit over the cliff here, and you're going to start seeing those obligations stabilize in the next 2 years. So that's actually a positive in the future on that. But look, let's talk about Medicaid for a second, okay? When you look, and frankly, I wish we had Senator Severson here because he's kind of our expert on this. But on the Medicaid front, we have hospitals in Chicago that are being paid the highest per procedure rates in the country. And some of them have less than 10% occupancy, meaning that 90% of their beds are not even in use. Yet they're continuing to be subsidized. And we found out in the budget hearing with the governor's office sitting there that these same hospitals have been given loans by the government to then turn around and shift those dollars into the federal Medicaid program to churn dollars to try to bring down more federal taxpayer dollars. Well, now some of those hospitals have declared bankruptcy. And the taxpayers have lost tens of millions of dollars. So if you want to have a real conversation about Medicaid, we are absolutely in that conversation, and we will have that conversation because there's lots of money to be saved. There is lots of money to be saved. But you can't keep throwing loans at failing infrastructure, especially unsecured loans. I mean, there's no mortgages on the property. There's no UCC filings on the equipment. There's nothing. The taxpayers are just left holding the bag. And by the way, when I asked how many more are going to fail, they wouldn't answer the question. Oh, I'm sorry, Sue.
On the budget, Democrats have been looking at putting a digital ad tax in the budget, but not counting the revenue from it because of the potential for lawsuits. I guess just your reaction to hearing that being considered, but not the fact that the revenue would be counted towards the ultimate.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot lately that is constitutionally questionable, and so that is something else that clearly they know they're on dubious grounds with it. They're going to test out a legal theory, but we should not be looking for more taxes. At this point, that's not going to be counted in this year's budget, but that is just it's the yearly tax and fee increase, and that's just going to be a part of next year.
What are the additional taxes, fees, and revenue items that beyond what the governor proposed in February that are concrete, solid, as you understand it right now?
I mean, we haven't seen the budget, Paris, so we do not know.
But let me just say it, and I invite Senator DeWitt to also respond because he's the revenue guy. But the governor had about $728 million in new taxes he proposed in his introduced. When we had our hearing a couple weeks ago after Gombe and COGFA revised, you're at $900 million deficit, okay? And that's before any new spending, right? Which we all know that's gonna happen. So, I mean, you're looking at a huge number on top of the 40 that Leader Curran already talked about in the last 7 years, the 40 other odd tax increases that have helped just balloon the size and scope of government. And then I would tell you, I'd ask Senator DeWitt just to make the point about how this LGDF situation just further hurts homeowners. And quite frankly, you talk about affordability in housing, cut property taxes. But what happens with LGDF, Senator DeWitt?
So Don DeWitt, 33rd Senate District, Kane, McHenry County. Once again, we've got a budget in the state that is going to require both tax increases as well as fund sweeps to make up for that shortage in revenues. LGDF is being cut, the local government distributive fund. It's the state's portion of state sales tax and income tax that diverts to municipalities. It's being cut again for about the 8th or 9th year in a row. It's a 3% cut this year. It's almost $70 million. Municipalities have no other choice how to make that revenue up than implementing property tax increases. K through 12 education is being cut nearly $50 million from the guaranteed $350 million that was assured in the EBF formula introduced back in 2018. How do those school districts deal with that $50 million that gets spread across the state? The only way they have to make it up? Property tax increases. These local government entities are handcuffed with how they can address these issues. They only have one way to fix it. And the more money that gets swept or cut from local governments is passed on to residents of those communities. They're nothing more but tax increases.
You'll be glad to know, I'm sorry, Rita.
No, go ahead, David.
You'll be glad to know I'm staying in Illinois. Leader Curran brought me back off the ledge. But can you look folks in the eye, especially Senator Lewis, and say, yeah, the Bears are in Indiana because it wasn't going to be a good deal for Illinois. I mean, from what I hear you saying, you're not going to accept a bad deal. We shouldn't, overpay, etc. So really, you're willing to let them get.
So the question.
Let them take my U-Haul.
Yeah, no. So the question for back home is: am I willing to not vote for a Bears project if it's a bad deal for Illinois residents? And unequivocally, yes, I will not vote for a Bears project if it's bad for Illinois residents. If it includes property tax hikes for those who are currently paying property taxes, that's a bad deal.
Even if it means Hammond or somewhere else.
Yes, because I don't believe the average Bear fan wants to be paying more in their homeowner and property taxes just to keep the team here in Illinois. I think they would expect us to work out a deal. We have the language. We know how to do it. It'd be the will of the General Assembly and the governor to not want that in there. I mean, this is not a complicated fix. The answer is already known, so it would be their choice. And the House bill did not offer that fix.
What is your idea for a fix then, as far as making sure people have as much property tax relief as they could get?
Very simple sentence. And this is assuming that we put tax certainty, or it's called the pilot program, into the bill. You just say, any program that qualifies for pilot shall not be included in base EAV values.
Senator Rose, obviously one of the major parts of the budget is higher ed funding as well. There was a huge discussion about the potential of an evidence-based funding model for higher ed. Obviously didn't come to fruition this year, but you've got U of I with tons of money. EIU, on the other hand, continues to struggle. What are we thinking with the potential for EIU to struggle again after this budget?
Well, thanks for the question. I would say all of higher education, right? We can just broaden this to the entire conversation. But I would, again, your governor's missing, right? So he is, quite frankly, actually not even missing. He's been outright hostile to the efforts in the legislature to try to solve this. I would first of all note he didn't put the $135 million that it relies on into his introduced budget, right? So right there, he's not supportive. He's the same guy that did cut the. He had a 3% increase in GRF this year to higher ed, but then he immediately rescinded 2% of it. Maybe it gets unrescinded by the end of the year or not, I don't know. But, that is something we've brought up at all of our hearings, that he should do that. But the bottom line to your question is, just like the Bears question, we need his participation. And it's been pretty funny to watch, Governor Pritzker fighting with literally Majority Leader Lightford and Representative Carol Ammons over what they view as an equity bill, and he's the one who's basically out here drumming up votes against it. So I guess my message would be somewhat similar to the message on the Bears. This is one of these systemic issues. We need a workforce that is educated and trained and ready to go to meet the needs of industry in the state, and yet he's AWOL on the issue. He's nowhere to be found.
Leader Curran, there have been some lawmakers discussing support for a 100% tax on compensation Illinois residents receive from Trump's anti-weaponization fund. What are your thoughts on that?
I know that's going to go under federal scrutiny, whether or not that fund actually exists. But that would be a first of its kind, 100% tax. I mean, that would not survive legal scrutiny. So, not sure if the federal program at all is going to survive legal scrutiny, but certainly a 100. I mean, that's a government seizure at that point. So.
Senator Curran, would Republicans, particularly we're talking ones that are outside of Chicago, which would be, I guess, all of them, would there be any kind of support for some kind of Bears bill that would only at this point help the Bears do their stadium and leave the mega projects outside of the Bears project to another time?
Craig, I'm sorry. Could you just ask that again?
Yeah, did I throw you in the Chicago? Would there be Republican support for a scaled-down mega projects bill that would, in this session, only help the Bears and not apply to any other mega projects?
Craig, I think that's the only option at this point. This is too late in the session to do a statewide mega projects bill, where you don't know what might be going in there. There is that bill that passed the House had no definition on, really. It excluded data centers and residential development, and that was it. You had no definition on really what would qualify as a mega project. So a concept like that, statewide, unknown, going out multiple years, this is too late in the session for that. So at this point, you would be looking at just the Bears.
It seems like that wouldn't solve the problem of getting some of these Chicago, progressive lawmakers that are the holdouts. It doesn't seem like that would add votes to the bill.
Well, I don't think the mega project, I mean, they put other things in the House bill to attract some Chicago votes. They weren't mega projects. So Chicago has needs. Chicago is the major economic hub of this state. Chicago is incredibly important. We may not represent Chicago. We recognize Chicago's importance to the Illinois economy. It is a world-class city, but there's no mega project on the table there. You know, but we stand ready to make sure Chicago's a thriving economy as well.
And talking about the scaling back, obviously we have the standalone downtown Springfield bill that, you know, we potentially could see a vote tonight, hopefully, so they could keep moving over to the House. Where do you all stand on that? It could mean a lot to this community in Springfield.
What it would mean is the second highest hotel tax rate in the state to Chicago. And it would be taxing other hotels in Springfield to build a competitor. So I think there are some serious questions about the fairness in that and whether or not actually hiking the Springfield hotel tax rate to have a government-built hotel is really going to be sound economic policy. But we're ready to listen, you know, but what we heard in executive committee, we were not in favor of.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.